Hey, Jim Parquet here with VPX Baseball, and today we're going to start lesson 1 on elite hit movements of pro pitchers, right? Bottom line is this: pitching is a lower half athletic movement that supports and drives the upper half movements, right? If you have any upper half issues, a lot of times it's rooted in your lower half. So we want to make sure that your hip moves are proper, that you are syncing your kinetic chain reaction, and more importantly, your timing and rhythm with your lower half matches your arm stroke and how the ball's going to free flow out of your hands, right? So I'm going to just kind of in this first lesson go over the different hip movements and go from there, right? Check out our other videos on all of the other aspects of pitching that will help you understand, more importantly, correlate and define the different things that we're talking about here, right? So your leg kick really determines the starting point and how efficient you're going to move into your foot strike, which obviously involves all of the hip movements that will power the baseball down and hopefully strike those hitters out or keep them off your bases, right? So in this, I want to be tall and I want to create the highest point that I possibly can, right? I'm 5'10", about $180, and I'm definitely not going to pitch like I'm 4'5", right? I'm going to stand tall so I can work down into the slope and utilize as much room, right? You want a lot of real estate for your lower half to be able to build and develop your pitch. And the more real estate or room that I have, the more opportunity I have to not only get longer down slope, but also drive and feel comfortable so that I'm supporting the upper half, which is the arm, right? So, high point right in here, right? And then as I move down, this is the key. The first hip move is going to be driving with your front side, right? Making sure that I drive at the catcher with the front portion of my hip, my front hip here, right? Boom, this way, okay? And notice how my hands are here. My hands aren't bouncing, right? You don't see guys all bouncing or whatever. They're going to actually be right here quiet, okay? And I'm just going to kind of warm up. I'm not really warm, but as you can see, I'm practicing driving with my front hip. Back hip, okay? That's important to set you up and to keep you riding your back hip into foot strike, okay? And the more that I can stay supported down slope, the better opportunity I'm going to have to be able to free my arm up to do what it needs to do, right? Which is release all the energy. So I've got to make sure again that I'm driving with my front hip because it keeps me loaded, locked over my back hip as I'm moving down. And more importantly, it gets me to be able to avoid this action and stay more linear. Us pitchers can't get this way because then what it does is we pull our arm through and then we've got to kind of find or choose that release point rather than we're right here and it just goes. It's already set for us, right? So again, drive with that front hip, okay? So if I did it regular motion, I'm starting to get a little blood flow. As you can see, right? On that one, I kind of pulled and went forward a little, but driving with your front hip also allows you to mitigate any upper half issues or rhythm and movement issues that you might have later in your delivery, right? So it's kind of a stop loss that really helps you understand how to move through your delivery properly. Again, a great starting position helps you become efficient in your ending position, which would be right in here, and then we go, okay? Second movement is as we move down into our loadout, right? Moving from basically when we start with our front hip into foot strike. We don't want to get this way at all. We want to stay closed the entire time. Now, if you look what I'm doing, we call this a power T, right? So a T right here. Obviously, you can see that, okay? So when I'm going, it's a power T. Now, notice my hips are still pointed straight. I'm not following how my foot goes. Now, if you want to be land closed, you can, but I don't really recommend this because you create a lot of torque within your knee area because you have to clear around. You know, if you're a freak of nature, maybe that's okay, but we want to keep you in the game longer and keep your health there. So you got to clear a little, okay? So notice how my front side is going with the foot but I'm not doing this. This right here, following it, is wrong because then I'm open and my arm's gonna be back here. But as long as I stay closed, now notice the upper half, how it doesn't move, right? I always tell guys, think of two pitchers of water on either shoulder and keep them there, right? So notice, boom, one's going back, the other's going forward, right? So you're creating this equal and opposite reaction, which creates the power sail, creates the catapulting effect, right? And more importantly, think of like a pole vaulter. They plant, and as they shoot up, you see this big curve in the pole, and then it flings them over. That's identical to how the energy flows through a pitcher and into the catcher's glove with your baseball, right? So I'm gonna just kind of work this for you so you can see, and I'm gonna stay as quiet as I can on the upper half and not fling, because your hips will oftentimes move with the upper half, right? You could be like this, and if you stay closed on your upper half, you're actually gonna minimize exposure down here, right? So we're just gonna work this action, right here. Okay. I'm gonna slow it down. Again, kind of just working it. Okay. That was a little pull at the end. I got a little early and I opened up. Try to really stay close and land close. Right? That felt better, and I felt like I was behind it more, right? Again. That feels real good. And notice, it took me 3 to actually get to the spot that I wanted, right? Because what I'm doing is I'm building motor pattern and trying to find that actual sweet spot that really feels crisp with the release. The ball's coming out crisp. It feels like a gunshot coming out. It's like boom, compared to it's like a pull and then it goes, right? If you're feeling like a pulling action, it's not crisp, where you're like flicking your fingers and bam, then there's something going on in your lower half and you've got to fix the tempo, right? So again, that feels like I pull a little, right? I feel like I'm like this compared to staying over it. That feels better, right? I feel like I'm behind it. And that's ultimately the key. That will be the indicator. If you feel like you're behind everything, but you're doing this, then your hips are moving in alignment, right? So review, hip, front hip leads to keep us linear, to keep us closed, keep us in this position. Your upper half has to stay quiet. Second one is power T, boom. Now when we land, that creates good shoulder to hip separation, right? Ultimately speaking, that's really just staying closed longer and landing close, right? Now obviously there's variations to it because some guys really rotate. So here's the front side, they'll really rotate, right? To get a little more degrees of velocity power that they can power this way. Some guys will cheat and they'll just go close. That's what I did, right? I cheated this way a little more, led, and then came out, so I was in that position. So it kind of looked like this. If I was straight and tried it, be more like this, compared to closed, boom. And you can see how I'm able to really gather on this, and that some guys can really do this, some guys will not be able to. The more closed and more hip separation, shoulder to hip separation you have, the more power and the more strength and the more athletic ability you need in order to execute, right? So I'm gonna kind of go my old way to show you how I went through with that shoulder to hip separation, right? So I'm closed, come down, drive with the hip, and then boom, right here. So more like that, watch. Okay? And because I'm a smaller guy, I needed a little more to generate, you know, my low to mid 90s fastball, right? That's how I did it, okay? Now I'm exaggerating it for you, but if I did it just normal, this is how it would look. Now right there, okay? Feel like I'm staying behind it. Yeah, I pull off a little, but I feel like I'm staying behind that, okay? Here's the next one, making sure that when I land, I'm not forward. As long as I'm over my back hip as I'm going, this is the action that we see right here, right? I'm riding that back hip, okay? Riding it into what I need to do, and then I'm solid, okay? So just make sure that you're just rolling through with driving your front hip, creating the power T, getting good shoulder to hip separation. That is really built upon where your head is and how quiet you are. And then the last one is just making sure that you're staying over your back hip. As soon as I start getting here, bam, I'm off and not gonna be good, right? So we're gonna go into more depth in other lessons here coming up. Hopefully you like this one. And bottom line is this, check out our other videos, and we got a full line of products to get you the big ones.